Okay, guys. Well, it looks like we're at 4:07, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. I need to make sure that I have my record button pushed because that's a huge part of this, I understand. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here to this particular workshop. My name is Charles. My last name is Harrell. I've basically been asked to speak to you guys about setting up an EMT program with your particular school. Um, some of you guys may already have program approval and you're simply just looking for just some simple assistance to help you continue to get set up. Or some of you guys may be starting from scratch, and I'm here to give you guys some general information on how to get that started, so that your programs can get off the ground and get going from there. I would say feel free to ask any questions as I go through my presentation, or if you'd like to write them down, and then we can discuss them at the end of it. That's fine too, whichever one works better for you. I will do my very best to answer those questions for you. And if I can't, then I will definitely try my best to point you in the right direction so that you can get those answers. I do, at the end of my presentation, I have a resource page that will have supporting documents and different things that you may need in your classrooms. There's going to be acronym posters in there, community classroom contracts, ride-along waivers, a whole bunch of different things that will help you, in your class when you're getting set up. I just want to tell you guys, from a personal opinion, I just want to tell you guys, I want to thank you guys for everything that you do. My experience teaching in public schools was probably one of the best experiences that I ever had. Prior to going to public school teaching, I was simply just out in the field. I had never thought about really teaching before. I was an instructor before, but I was never really a teacher before. And the training was fantastic. The people I trained with were fantastic. The students were amazing. I was just absolutely enjoyed that tremendously. So I just wanted to thank you guys for what you do. And then also let you know that you will see this coming back around. I'm just making sure everybody can hear me, right? Thumbs up? Okay. So just letting you know, you may not see a big difference when you're with your students at your schools, but my training facility where we actually, we work with adults in the training facility. I see these young adults all the time from all of your schools circling back for CPR training because they need that to go into nursing school, or they need it because it's a prerequisite for this or for that. They are all signing back up for EMT programs because it takes them to the front of the line for nursing school. It helps them to get into the fire academy. It's a prerequisite now. So we see them again, even though they don't pull the trigger on what you're teaching them now. About 1 or 2 years after they've been out there, they sampled some things, they circle back to it. So stay with it, it works. Okay, so let's get started with my presentation. First of all, let's share my desktop. And we're going to pull up this guy. So just confirming everybody can see my desktop, yes? Gotcha. Okay, so as I said before, my name is Charles. My last name is Harrell. I'm a licensed paramedic with the state of California. My career started in 2003. I went to American Ambulance, got trained as an EMT. During 2003 to 2015, I worked my way through the everything available as an EMT. And then I became a paramedic preceptor. So I taught other students how to be paramedics. And then I was a paramedic supervisor before I retired out of the field. I taught at Fowler High School from 2016 to 2000, right up until the pandemic. I taught the EMT program there. I also did some anatomy physiology. I carry a dual credential. I carry it in public service, and I also carry it in health science and medical technology. That was a little bit difficult to get, but it's not unobtainable. So, if you have an interest, if you have the background to teach public service, a lot of your teaching credentials will cross over, and you can petition to get that dual credential. I am also a NIMSES instructor 1 and 2. That's the National Association for EMS Educators. That's going to play huge in your programs. When we start talking about Title 22 and the 20 hours, or excuse me, 40 hours of teaching methodology that you're going to need to have. If you're starting a program from scratch, whoever you're going to have that's going to be your primary instructor for your program, I would recommend that they be NIMSE certified because they meet the 40 hours that will get them started. And then obviously if they're going to go through some type of a credentialing program, they'll get multiple hours on top of that, but this will get them started right out of the gate. I am also a BLS, ACLS, PALS, and a EMT instructor. Currently, I'm the director and the owner of Alert Medical Training in Fresno, California. I provided my telephone number and also my email. Feel free to email me at any time that you would like for any questions pertaining to the EMT program. I will be more than happy to help assist you with that. If you are local, we also have resources when you are getting your program set up and you need instructors, experienced instructors to come out and teach a certain portion. Maybe it's going to be airway, or it's going to be some type of CPR, it's going to be some type of splinting, whatever that may be. Just get a hold of us. Let us know that, hey, I plan on doing it on this day. Do you have anybody that's available? We will send people out to you. Whatever we can do to help support your programs and those students, we will do that for you. All right. So the course description for the EMT program, it's designed to prepare students in a career in emergency medical services as a EMT or emergency medical technician. It's going to focus on patient assessment, patient care, and transport in the pre-hospital setting. So those people that are injured or sick at home or in the public that need that assessment, the care, and then they need to be transported. That's what this job basically is preparing them for. Your curriculum that you choose on, your curriculum, whichever one it is, it should satisfy the requirements for county and state EMS authorities. And a successful completion of that curriculum and a passing of an NREMT exam, which is a National Registry of EMTs. If they pass that exam, it's going to lead to licensing and accreditation. So they will get their national accreditation from the NREMT, which is pretty much the same as someone that's taking the NCLEX if they were in nursing. So it's a huge accomplishment for a student out of high school to be able to meet that requirement. They will also get a state EMT license. That's something new that when I was first started in the industry, the state did not give a license for this particular job title. And then you'll also get a county accreditation too. So this program will, right out of the gate, it can lead to all three of these license and also accreditations if the student is checks off all of the boxes. So employment, what type of employment is that going to open up for these EMTs? So obviously they can work for ambulance services. They can work for a 911 setting, which is the pre-hospital setting. They can also work for what we call BLS services, which are basic life support. You call because you can't drive in your own car. You need an ambulance to come pick you up, and they will take you to wherever your clinic or sort of that sort of thing is. But there's not going to be any of the fancy lights and sirens and dealing with blood and gore and things like that. So they can certainly do those things. It leads to jobs in the fire service. As I said before, it's a prerequisite for the fire academy now that all of their personnel have to be EMT certified. So we just have a large influx of students coming to our facility that are trying to get EMT certifications because they know that ultimately it's leading to their fire job. Hospitals, they can work as ED techs or transporters in the hospitals. There's all different places within the hospital that EMTs qualify to work in. They just never knew that. And so that's opening up for them. We have clinics and urgent cares for patient care assistants. The COVID testers are still out there, and there were at one point in time, emergency services around the state of California actually ran short on EMTs because the COVID testing sites pulled from their employee pool. And so they were panicking, trying to get more EMTs on board. And then obviously any job or factory or plant or anything at all that has first aid jobs, if someone gets sick or injured, EMTs qualify for those jobs. So there is a huge, vast number of jobs that are out there for them, and they can obtain these jobs right out of high school with those certifications. So how do we get started? So California Regulations Title 22, Division 9, Chapter 2. That's where it talks about things that you're going to have to do for compliance. Also, we have LIMSA. LIMSA is going to be your local EMS agency. So for your county, here in our county, if you're here in Fresno County, Fresno, Kings, Madera, or Tulare, SIMSA. So it's going to be the Central California EMS agency. They're the ones basically who are kind of call the shots and tell us what we need to get done. If I had to do a comparison, my Bible, if my Bible was Title 22, then LIMSA would be my 10 Commandments. So that's kind of how I look at it when it comes to those things. When it comes to LIMSA, you need to apply. If you're applying to start your training school, you're starting from scratch, then you're going to have to get a hold of your local EMS agency and ask what the requirements are for your training school, for your license itself. And then they should have an array of things that you would have to do. You're going to have to create some sort of a binder. And then after which you would have to find yourself a fire agency or some sort of sponsor for your clinical duties that those students are going to have to do. So here is my, this is my binder. It's about that thick, and it's got a bunch of tabs that are through there. And this is everything that LIMSA required for me. I'm going to show you what those things are here. So let's look at Title 22 first. So Title 22, if you look at Title 22 on page 20, or excuse me, at the bottom of page 19 and to 20, it's going to start talking about what your teaching staff, what's the requirements here for your staff that's going to be here. You have to have an administrative direction, you have to have medical quality coordination, and you have to have a program instruction. Those are the three things that Title 22 says that you have to provide. So basically, your program director is going to do the administrative directions for you. Program director does not have to be the highest person on the totem pole. They do not have to be a doctor or a nurse, a paramedic, and so on and so forth. What they do have to do is they have to have educational experience to be a director. They have to have some type of work experience that says that they are qualified to be a director. Once you have that, then they need to get 40 hours of documented teaching methodology, and that will qualify them to be your director. Once again, NIMSES, if you go to that National Association of EMS Educators, you will satisfy that 40 hours of documentation right away, and you kind of kiss the ring of the governing board that deals with the emergency medical technician. When it comes to your clinical coordinator, now this is more specific. This here says that your clinical coordinators have to be someone who is either a paramedic. Right here, if you look here, right here on line 1, your clinical coordinator has to be either a physician, a registered nurse, a physician assistant, a paramedic, licensed in the state of California. Now, there is nothing that says that one person can't be all of those things. You can have one person that can be your director, your clinical coordinator, and your primary instructor if that's what you want. But at this point, if you do separate those out, and it's probably wise if you're doing it from a teaching program. So for instance, when I was working over at Fowler, Mike McCombs was our director for our program. But I was listed as the clinical coordinator because I satisfied the paramedic portion of that. So I would say that you definitely don't want whoever's going to be that one. If you want to group them all together and have one person, make sure that they work in administrative services for your program, because if they're at the teaching level and they decide to find a new job, then your program leaves when they leave. Does that make sense? Okay, then moving on, your primary instructor, who's going to be in the classroom teaching, and once again, it can be one person that takes care of all of those jobs, but your primary instructor will now drop down, according to Title 22, they can drop down and they can actually be an EMT or an advanced EMT as long as they have 2 years of field experience or 2 years of academic experience within the last 5 years. So an EMT can be your primary instructor. They cannot be the clinical instructor, but they can be a director if you want, which is just kind of weird to me. But the top of the scale there is going to be your clinical coordinator. Now, when we look at, when I talked about this binder here that you need to put together, this binder is coming right out of this, ours is coming right out of the Central California EMS Agency, so CIMSA, once again, and it talks about training school approvals. And in here, it tells you things that you're going to need to do before you get that, get your license to run your program, is that you have to permit a statement verifying the usage of the DOT curriculum that you're going to have. So you have to produce your curriculum and show them what your curriculum is. They're going to want to know, you need a statement verifying CPR training, American Association guidelines. So you have to have healthcare provider CPR training. And you need to either show that you have someone on staff who is a healthcare provider CPR instructor, or you need to say that this is the facility that we are going to contract with so that these students have this healthcare provider of CPR training. I would recommend that you find a training site, whoever your instructor is going to be, just find a training site that is able to make instructors, and we will train your instructor. We will train them so that they are now a CPR trained instructor, and they can do their own training at your facility. That's the best way to do that. And we do have some people that do that actually, I believe Clovis, I want to say Clovis East or Clovis High, one of the two of them actually contracts with us, and we have made their instructors CPR instructors so that they don't have to come to us every time that they need to get one of their students trained. You have to provide samples of your written skills and examinations for periodic testing, as well as what your final skills competency exam is going to be. So we simply just take our National Registry skills, and I'll show you some of those in a second also, but we take the trauma and the medical, and that's what we use for our final competency examination. So once you put all of these things in, it goes A through K. Once you've satisfied all of those things, you put them into a binder, you put the tabs, you submit it to your local EMS agency, they'll flip through it. Typically, they don't have a lot of questions, but if they do, they'll get back to you, say, can you tweak this or tweak that? And then once you get the approval, they'll give you a number, and now you are good to go with your program. The rest of it is just going to be you setting it up and figuring out how you want to teach it. Am I going too fast for anybody at all? Would you like me to slow down? Okay. So Title 22 and LMSA, those two I stick very close to when it comes to compliance. Also, as I said, finding that clinical sponsor, because clinicals are going to be a huge part of your program too. So you're going to have to find a fire agency or some EMS agency that is going to attach themselves to you and say that we not only are going to support you, but we will also allow you, well, our sponsor, we don't do rides with them anymore, but ideally your sponsor should also say, yes, you can do ride-alongs with us to satisfy your requirements also. So the EMT program requirements, we just discussed all of those. So director and the clinical coordinators, RNs and that sort of thing, primary instructors, we discussed those things. When it comes to your national curriculum, that can be something like the AAOS, which is the big yellow book, and I'll show that. The Brady's or the Mosby's. That's going to be a national curriculum that's been approved. Then you'll have clinicals and skills. So every student has to do 10 national skills and 5 state skills, and they have to be proctored and signed off on those in order to get a course completion. That means that it's a 10-to-1 ratio. So if you have 1 certified instructor, you can only have them work with 10 students. If you have 20 students in your class, you need to have 2 instructors, certified instructors, on that particular day that you're doing skills or clinicals. So when we talk about curriculum, so here are the 3 that I would recommend for you if you were setting up your program. The Brady Care or the Yellow Book, well, here, let me just talk about this first. So textbook and workbooks. There are online platforms for all 3 of these curriculums. Online platforms are great. I use them at my adult facility or alert medical training. I did not use them at the high school. Some of the pros for that online platform is the students don't have to carry around this big bulky book. If they have to put it in their backpack with their other 6 books, they typically throw some books out, and yours gets thrown out quite a bit because it's going to be the bigger of all of those books. So one of the pros is there's no books. The other pro definitely is that the platform is self-grading. They can do all of their work online, and it will grade itself, and you don't have to worry about grading paperwork. The cons to that is going to be that it's expensive. It's going to run somewhere between $250 and $300 per student per year. And you can't reuse it. It's a one student use. So, I mean, if you have that in your budget, absolutely fantastic. I would recommend going with an online platform. If not, then we're going to go back to the old typical, just the hard book itself with a workbook. And all of these books have those features. This one here, the emergency care book, is what I used over at Fowler High School. This is the AAOS book. The 12th edition is what we're using right now over at my adult facility. I have never used the Mosby's book, but I've heard from other instructors that it's a pretty good book also. If I had to compare these, this book here, the emergency care that I use over at Fowler High School, compared to the AAOS book that I use at the adult facility, this one would be a high school book. This would definitely be a college level book. In my opinion, if I had to compare it. So clinicals and skills. As I mentioned earlier, you're going to have to find yourself a ride sponsor. Our ride sponsor for my adult facility is American Ambulance, because I know that all of my adults are 18 years of age, and so there's not going to be an age problem with getting them onto an ambulance for an observation shift. In Fowler, my ride sponsor was Kingsburg Fire Department, because Kingsburg Fire Department does not have an issue with having 16-year-olds on an ambulance with them. They just want to make sure that they come out and train first so they can tell them things that they can and cannot do. So those ride sponsors, it has to be on a 911 ambulance or fire agency. And they're going to need to ride 24 hours to satisfy that requirement. And they'll need to have 10 documented contacts. If you don't have a fire agency that's willing to take your students on because of liability reasons or whatever the case may be, then you can go to the clinical site, and we can either put them into a hospital ED or an urgent care, as long as they are taking intake of sick patients, and they can get their observation credit there. Same thing is going to apply. It has to be 24 hours of observation, and they're still going to have 10 documented contacts. Here are the national skills that they're going to have to not only know, but they're going to have to, you have to have a licensed proctor come in that says, I've watched them do the skill and I've checked them off box by box saying that they are proficient, and they're going to have to sign it and put their license number to it saying that I attest that they are proficient in that particular skill. So all of these have to be, you have to meet all of those requirements. And then these are the state skills also, including emergency childbirth. They'll have to do all of those things. So let me go to that equipment. Well, I'll just keep moving forward. So student requirements for certification. They have to have that BLS certification. That is actually a prerequisite for the EMT program, is that they have their BLS, that's basic life support, it's a CPR. They have to have that healthcare provider CPR prior to being in class. Now, here's the caveat to that. When you start your class, when they sign up for your EMT class, take your first week and teach them BLS. Teach them, get them certified for the CPR, and now they meet the requirements for the class. They have to have 150 hours of instruction. My class was a dual period class, so I knew that I had 300 plus hours that were involved in here, but they have to meet a minimum of 150 hours of instruction. So a single class is not going to do it, not when you add in all of the extra things that they do on campus. They've got to meet those 24-hour ride-alongs. That will also satisfy your CTE community classroom requirements once you get those contracts and you put them out 10 patient contacts, verification of the national skills, and then they have to pass a score on a final. It just says a passing score. That's what Title 22 says, is a passing score. It does not give a number to that. So as long as you are staying away from D's, and I think just a C or above, you're going to be fine. At Fowler High School, we put an 80% on ours. I know of some programs that do 75%, so you can get away with 75%. I don't know that you would want to have them pass a final with 70 or above and say that that's passing, because the National Registry grades them on a 75% or above. So I would say probably at least 75% is where you want to be. If you want to, increase that, then increase it. We were an 80%. Made it a little bit tougher on the students. In retrospect, if I could go back and do it again, I would probably start at 75% until we had that track record of success, and then start raising it up to an 80% after that. So fees, they didn't ask me to put this in here, but I wanted to put this in here because they told me to talk about some of the frustrations when it came to the class, and this is definitely one of those. I think that if we are going to put students through a program, and the objective here is to make them employable right outside of high school, and we give them the opportunity at license and accreditations, then they need to be financially able to pay these fees that are going to get them those certifications, or we need to have some way to support them so that they can pay for those fees. So that BLS certification, AHA is going to charge $55, and then there's a $20 book fee. The only place that's allowed to house the books, basically buy a bunch of books and keep them on staff so that you don't have to keep paying $20 every time a student does that, is hospitals. They allow them to actually library their books. Now, I'll be honest with you. Did I library my books over at Fowler? Absolutely. We just bought 25 of them, threw them in the cupboard, and we just reused them over and over again. It's not ideal, but we're not paying $20 for a book every single time. There's going to be a live scan fee, FBI and DOJ background check that every EMT has to go through. They can't get their accreditation without it. So that's a $70 fee. NRT, the exam that they're going to take themselves for the National Registry is a $98 exam. And I would like my students, we wanted them to take it together. We didn't want them to do it independently where, yeah, you pass the program, you got a course completion. When you get $98, go take this exam. And they go to this testing center and they treat them like they're a convict. They make them take their watches off and their wallets out and all of their personables, and lock them into a locker, and then sit in this cubicle and pass the test. It's a very scary thing. It's a scary thing for an adult. So it's definitely scary for them. So we wanted all of our students to go together so that they had each other to help them get past this next hurdle. But they couldn't all pay for the course together at the same time. So, keeping that in mind, maybe connecting with the parents and saying, what do we have to do here? Have a car wash or something, so we have this additional money here to pay for these fees, if that's possible. I'm not really sure. And then the local accreditation is going to be $25, and their state license itself is $100 per every 2 years. Is what they would have to do. But those fees will total up to about $348, and that's what it's going to take if they want the license and the accreditation and to start working right away after high school. Something to keep in mind. So EMT is a single course pathway. Some of the concentrator courses or supporting courses that I would recommend for that is definitely any courses that you guys have for medical terminology. If they could take that somewhere in their sophomore or junior year, that would be fantastic, because now they speak the language and we don't have to stop. The testing that they're going to have are scenario-based questions. And if they can't speak that language, it's going to be so difficult for them to achieve a passing score on the exam. Anatomy physiology. If you guys provide that on your campuses, I would definitely recommend that they take anatomy physiology as a prereq to coming to the EMT class. Now, medical terminology in anatomy physiology is certainly taught in this core curriculum. It is there, and it meets the the standard. But if you want to increase the probability of students doing well and passing the course and getting that certification, having them take these before they get into the class will certainly help them become a better student when they're in the classroom. Another one here is driver's training. So a lot of people say, why is driver's training here for a healthcare pathway? The driver's training, EMTs, if they're going to work on an ambulance or work for the fire department, those are entry-level jobs, which means that they're going to drive. And if they want a shot at working for one of these ambulance companies or fire companies, they have to have 3 years of driving experience before they will hire them, or before those agencies' insurance will let them hire them. So as a result of that, if we can get them in driver's training at 16, by the time that they finish high school and they finish this process, they've already got 2.5 years under their belt. By the time that they apply and go through everything else, they'll have that 3 years of driving background that most of those agencies are going to require. So those are things that I definitely would say, add to your course either prior to or while they're going there to help strengthen them as a student. As I mentioned before, I had a double block periods on campus, so that totaled about 360 hours. But it really didn't total 360 hours, even though it says that. Scheduling and pacing. So as you can see here, I simply just took, I took all the weeks of a calendar year for school, and I put them into a chart. And then I just took my chapters and I started filling them in, including my skills and things like that. And that gave me an idea of where I wanted to go with that. Now, I remember when I was going through all my training, teacher training and things like that, where they were teaching me about Bloom's taxonomy and all these other things that we needed to do. And I remembered arguing with them all the time. I was always saying, wait a second, guys, I got 39 weeks and 39 chapters. I don't have time for all of these other things on the side. And honestly, I really did have time. It's just, you've got to plan it out and you've got to follow your plan. So for me, typically on a week, if I was doing chapter one, I never tried to do more than one chapter a week. If I was doing chapter one for that week, on Monday, there would be a lecture. On Tuesday, it would be, let's work with our workbooks. On Wednesday, there's going to be some type of a group project so that you all can talk about the information together. On Thursday, we're going to do some type of checking for understanding, like a Kahoot or a Jeopardy or what we call a ball toss or something like that. And then on Friday, it's a celebration of learning. Let's see what we learned. If things were acceptable, we moved on to chapter two. If things were a miserable fail, then chapter two got put off and we went back and we retaught chapter one. But that's pretty much how, they wanted me to speak about, how did I get to the point to figure out what we were going to teach and how we're going to teach it. And that's pretty much what I did. I also provided that documentation for you guys in the reference folder too. Ultimately, I tried to get my classroom to that student-centered learning, where I would just give them small projects that would allow them to discuss the information. It's one thing to have somebody stand at the front of the room, we all know this, and just give direct instruction, about everything that's in their head, and you'll watch the kids' eyes roll back and they'll fall asleep, they'll start doodling, they're just not paying attention anymore. But once you take that information, you give them to them with a project, such as a video project, or I would give them a case study that had, this sick person, and here's the vital signs, and here's all the things that were going on with them. Now you guys discuss it and figure out what it is. So that was, that actually worked out well for me. And towards the end, just before the COVID hit, I switched from a chapter-based learning and I flipped this thing completely around and went to a module-based learning that more aligned itself with the National Register. So the program itself, I have just a short video just to give you an idea of some of the things that happened in the classroom. So like I said, that first week is CPR training. That's what they need to learn. They need to get that prerequisite out of the way. After that, we start doing various skills in the classroom. So teaching them how to take vital signs and other various skills are definitely necessary. They're going to have to touch each other. They've got to get used to touching each other. In the COVID environment, masks are on, but we're gonna get into the space with each other. So I'm going to show you an equipments list a little bit later on some of the things that I recommend equipment that you have in your classrooms. If you don't have this, your industry partners have all of these things. And if they truly are partnered with you, tell them what you want to do on the day you want to do it, and they will bring that equipment out to you. Now, smiles tell us that our students are engaged and they're enjoying what it is that they do. So I always look for the smile factor to see if they were into the training, and they love this. They truly do. If you create that environment where it's safe for them to learn, they will love that. Your industry partners, find that fire department or find that ambulance company that is willing to take your classroom on and allow you to do your clinicals out in the field. After that, showcasing. Showcasing is going to be huge if you want to keep your numbers up. Once students figure out that this is a tough course and there's a lot of work involved, they have to be into it. They have to basically say, you know what, I see it, I'm interested, I want to be there. And so showcasing was huge. Afterwards, certifications and certificates. And this takes me back to what I was talking to you guys about, truly thanking you guys for what you do. Having that experience with these students and seen some of them break out into tears and say that I've never received a certificate ever in my life, changed my life to hear them say that. This is one of those courses where they will truly get those things. And to teach a 16-year-old how to deliver a baby and see the look on their face when they realize what all of those things entail, and they realize that they can certify to do that right out of high school, it just really gets them, energizes them and gets them into the course. Next, come on there. All right, so challenges. I think that's next, yes. So some of the challenges. I am not going to ever gang up on counselors. I think they do a fine job, and they are a necessary part. But I will say this: your counselors have to be familiar with your program. If they don't know it, they are going to misrepresent your program, and students are going to be there and say, "I didn't know that I had to do this," or "I didn't know that it entailed that." I can't tell you how many students I had at one point in time that said, "I didn't know that I had to be on an ambulance. I didn't know I was going to be around sick people." We don't control 911. So these students are going to be around people that are going to die in the field. And there are some things that we do, like we have provisions to have them sit in the front of the ambulance. If we see something that's gory or they're not ready to see yet, they can certainly go and sit in the front of the ambulance and just let the crew deal with it. But in some cases, if they want to see that, they're going to see death for the first time out in the field in the pre-hospital setting. So they have to know, those counselors have to know that those are going to be some of the things that are going to happen. We just can't control 911. Some of the other things that they need to talk with them about is the students need to understand the caseload. If they think that this is going to be a walk in the park, anybody can do it, that's not going to be true. Once again, a consistent way to showcase your program. That's going to be important too, because no one can tell the students about the program better than the students. So if you have a way for the students to talk to each other, show other students what it is that they're learning, your recruitment will be up. If that, you want to keep recruitment up. I started with 30, I went down to 20, I went down to 15, and the last year before COVID, we were down to 8. After the reputation circulated that this was a tougher course. Your scheduling pacing charts. So I had a double blocked period, which was 360 hours. But after you factor in rallies and field trips and assemblies and sports organizations and things like that, your 360 hours drops down to about 202 hours. Making sure that your pacing chart, you stay with your pacing chart the best you can, will definitely help you not, run into those issues. And that was a problem for me because I got I was like, today's going to be a skills day. So I've got 20 students. So I brought in 2 outside industry partners to come in and do these skills on that particular day. But then there was an assembly because we were having some sporting event and half of my class was gone. So, now I have to have those people come back in again. So that's a frustration for me in keeping an eye on that. Funding. So know your budget and know how that money is able to be spent. That was a bit of a frustration for me. I was a newer teacher. I wasn't, I didn't know anything about Perkins funding and stuff like that. That just wasn't what I did. I had a great partner, Mike McCombs, did a great job helping me through and helping me to figure out what we could spend and how we could creatively spend it so that, the students, would benefit from that. And then lastly, field trips, that CTE, we love to take our children on field trips and things. So finding something that is within your wheelhouse so that it's a productive field trip, I would definitely say that's going to take some planning also. Resources. So I put some links in here for resources for you guys. So I have the emsa.org link that's there. It'll take you directly where you need to go. The SIMSA link is there for you guys to get together. Like I said, Title 22 would be the Bible, and SIMSA is going to be the 10 Commandments. So go to SIMSA and look that up so that you can figure out what it needs, what it's going to require for you to put your binder together if you don't have one. And then also the nremt.org. So this guy here, when you go to NREMT and you have your students actually sign up for this, your program director is the only person, when they're done with the class, they are the only person that can go in here and actually check them off as course completed. So this is my director. When I log in, I go to my program director for alert medical training. And what it does is it allows me to manage my candidates. So all of my students that are in my class, they will be listed in here. They'll have to sign up into the network, and whoever your program director, they're the only ones that can log in here and give them their course completion when they're done. This system used to not allow them to sign up until they were 18 years old. If you tried to sign up your 17-year-old student, it would kick them out and they would not be here. But they've changed that over the last, it actually went into effect in about 2017, where you can now sign up your 16, 17-ish year old students, and it will hold them in the system. And then once they turn 18 and they meet that requirement, as long as they've done everything else in the curriculum, you can go back and backdate this and successfully complete them. So let's say they finish a course in June, but they don't turn 18 until December. Well, as long as you have a mechanism where you can still track them, once they turn 18, you know they completed the course, go on and give them their completion, and now they can move on to their accreditation. Okay, so that is what I had for you guys with my presentation. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. No questions? If it's okay if you don't. I mean, it's a lot of information. I threw it at you all at once. You like I said, it's on that beginning page there in my presentation. I'll also make sure that you guys get links to me and my facility, but you can message me at any time, give me a call at any time. I'll be more than happy to help you guys get set up or help you maintain or whatever it is that you need to have.
I wanted to just bring one in real quick here. I'm up in the North Valley, up in Merced, and we are looking at doing an EMT program through the district. But we have the EMT program at our community college, and they're a little hesitant to help us out with this because they think we'll be flooding the system. So I saw some information you had on there earlier that might help to sway them a little bit. Any other suggestions for that?
Well, I will tell you what I know about Merced. Merced's a little bit tough. We actually were trying to get a training facility over there, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so they pretty much, unless you know someone that's willing to give you that help up, they kind of stop it a little bit. I'm not really sure where they're gonna settle when it comes to public school. Honestly, the amount of students that you're going to put through there is actually only going to help the community college, because those students, to be honest with you, if you have 10 students that meet the requirements, you're going to get 3 that are probably going to pass the national registry, which means that those
That's
other
kind of what
7.
we're pushing. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm actually doing this through rigs.
okay.
And it's just, we're getting a lot of pushback from the college. What they have suggested is that we start with an EMR program. So that's what we're doing to start with, kind of
So
testing the
I've heard
waters
that
with
before.
EMR.
I've heard that before. A good friend of mine, Al at Mariposa, he teaches the EMR over there, and he's kind of against the EMT program because he's like, how do you do that? How do you go through all of the requirements and the difficulties that you have to have, and the ride-alongs and the clinicals and all of those things? How do you do that and get a accreditation or certification for these kids? So he's like, just do the EMR. It's better. It'll get them exposed. And if you want to do that, an EMR as your add it to a pathway so that they can move from EMR to EMT, then I would certainly say that's an excellent way to go, because once again, it's going to help them with the psychomotor skills, so that they'll enter your program already knowing how to do those skills. It's going to help them with terminology and all of those things. So that will definitely help. But I would recommend going back to the college and telling the college, you're not going to flood the system with EMTs. All you're going to do is you're going to create interest, which eventually they can't go back and go to high school and complete it or get that accreditation. So it's going to send them to them. So I would think that they would want to support you at that level, because at least you're going to expose them so that they're more driven when they get to the community college.
Yeah, I just think the EMT program there is afraid we're going to take all of their students and they won't have anyone sign up. So
no, I just don't see it. I mean, if you are an excellent,
well, that's
program,
what the college is saying.
Yeah, if you're an excellent
Sorry?
program and you're doing all the things that that you're supposed to do, and the students love it, and they're getting those accreditations, then absolutely, yes, you probably would take a portion of it. But to be honest with you, a lot of people don't even think about becoming an EMT or being on an ambulance. There is no way that a young adult that's in high school says that, yes, I can drive that ambulance, lights and sirens, and blow through that stop sign as soon as I'm out of high school. They don't think that that's obtainable. So it's not until they're in their 20s, 21, 22, and that's definitely at the community college level where they start to. So I just don't see you affecting their business now.
Thank you.
Anything, Robert?
Well, yes, I wanted to talk with you when you're done with everybody else. I do currently do a EMR for CRYROP, Colton Redlands, Yucaipa ROP in Redlands. And I actually have an ambulance simulator that's being built tomorrow in my medical lab. I have my students, as they go through the EMR program, I have current EMT, paramedic, firefighters, they come in and do the psychomotor skill evaluations at the EMT level. That way, when they go into the EMT program, most of them, if they decide to go that route, they go to Crafton Hills. They're already familiar with it. They already know the psychomotor skills. And then the best part of all is after they've graduated and become EMTs, now they're coming back into my classroom and are evaluating my current students, except for this past year, of course, with COVID.
Outstanding. So we have Ray Frimfrock over at Clovis East. He teaches a EMR fire academy over there, and he does the same thing. He has industry partners come in that signs them off on those psychomotor skills. Now, there is a EMR psychomotor skill and there's an EMT psychomotor skill. They're both the same, but they do slightly different things. Ray will have his students signed off on the EMT portion of it because he knows if they don't complete their program, they can come, when they come to another training facility, they already have the psychomotor skills signed off as an EMT. And if the program wants to accept it, then they can accept that and the student doesn't have to do it again. They're good for 2 years.
Yeah, I was an Army medic, retired, I'm not going to tell you how many decades ago. I ran the ambulance service out at Fort Irwin. I don't know if you're familiar where that is.
My brother was born there.
What's that?
My brother was born there.
Oh, all right. At the Weed Army Community Hospital, huh? Okay. And I actually ran the ambulance service out there for about 2.5 years and created and implemented an EMT program for Barstow College out there when I was stationed out there. So I basically teach my EMR at the EMT level to help them out.
Outstanding. Any more questions?
On your resource file, does that have the ride-along information contract per se for, say, the fire department?
So I'll show you what I have.
Because we were working on with one of the local hospitals to get my EMR students in there last spring, working on the contract and everything. And then, of course, COVID kicked off, and now we're going to have to start from scratch again to try to get that contract up.
So what we did with our contract was, let's see if I can pull this up. Come on, pull it up. So we used a community classroom agreement from Fresno County itself, from our CTE program. And they put together a community classroom contract. And then we took this contract out and basically had it signed at the fire station or our training station there. They read it over, went through the legals, and they said that that was fine with them. And so they signed it. Now, of course, they knew what this was all about anyway. So this was just a formality for them. But I would think that your CTE program, your ROP program should have some sort of a community classroom agreement, and that should be able to serve as the contract for your ride-along itself. Another thing that I have for my ride-alongs is I had to create a document. So I created this document itself, which serves as, and you would have to store this for up to 4 years, but it serves as their proof of their contacts. So the shift, the student's name, where they logged in, logged off, who the crew was, they would put those things in there. They need a signature from one of those crew members at the end of their ride. And then they're going to track all this information. They need to track the EMS number, the age, the sex, the weight of that patient, any skills that they observed needs to be tracked. And so they would put this onto a tracking form and then turn that into you. And then you would save that as proof of their patient contacts. So I provided this for you as a template. You can change it, do whatever you want to do to modify it for your particular organization. Another thing that I have in here for you, I don't know if you can still see my screen, is a checkoff list. So this is a easy follow checkoff list for you. As the student goes through, if they have their first ride and they've completed it, check it off. Second ride, check it off. So now they've met the 24-hour hours, check that off. Once they get to their 10 patient contacts, check that sucker off. Every time that they do a skill, check it off until you just keep checking down the list until everything is checked off. Once it's all checked off, you know that your student has met all of the requirements for a course completion. So I provided that for you too. That was my easy go-to template. When you have a large class and it's kind of hard for you to lesson plan and deliver lessons and grade papers and then still do this clinical responsibility too, it is a lot if you are just a single instructor doing that. And so any tool that you can have to help you simplify that, I found, is great. Let me just real quickly before we leave, let me show you your equipment list or what I would recommend. So if you're already teaching an EMR, you probably have some of these things already. But you're going to have some type of oxygen tank because that's going to be a skill. Oxygen tank assembly and delivering oxygen via a non-rebreather, nasal cannula, and a BBM, things like that. When it comes to mannequins, I would say you need to have a full body mannequin so that you can do a full body assessment on a patient. That's going to be that final assessment tool that they talked about in Title 22. You need to have some type of an airway mannequin. These are relatively cheap. It's just the upper and lower airway. Runs about $150. You can do the head tilt, chin lift, suction it. You can do all those things. You can breathe for it too. I would also say a birthing mannequin so that you satisfy the California requirements for emergency childbirth. So those are the 3 mannequins that I would say. Of course, you're going to need backboards, a short board, KED especially, so that they know about the Kindred extrication device. It's everywhere, and then your supporting straps. For splinting, I talked about the traction splint. The traction splint is not a national checkoff, and it is not a state checkoff, but it is mentioned on the NR EMT website that every EMT student needs to be trained on a traction splint. So that Sager splint, I would say get at least one Sager and make sure that they're trained on that. The rest of your splinting can be as cheap as a cardboard splint to a formidable splint or air splints. If you got a lot of money, those are great too. But you decide per your program. Collars, blood pressure cuffs, stethoscopes, all of these things are just going to be just, typical things that you should have within your program. Glucometers here. This is a California state skill that a student, it is now expanded as an EMT. So EMTs can now do finger sticks. So this was something that Mike and I came to odds with, because Mike says, according to our school, Fowler, students could not play with blood products. They weren't allowed to do so. So as a result of that, I was like, yeah, but this is part of their requirement, is that they have to know and do a finger stick. So we went back and forth on this. You're going to have to figure out where your school district is with that, but it is a state requirement. They're going to have that in the state of California for certification. So you're going to have to figure out how we're going to get those fingers sprayed. Optional equipment. So a working gurney would be great, so that they know how to lift, use proper lifting techniques, and they know how to use a gurney that's in the market. We use the Stryker gurney still. And if you have a lot of money for a working ambulance, that's great. We did not have that, and even at my facility, we don't have a working ambulance. But what we did do was we hired a contractor, and we had them build us a set. So we have a wooden set that resembles an ambulance. From, if you took an ambulance and cut it in half, we have a set in our facility that looks like the back of an ambulance. So if you have a woodworking department at your campus, have them build you a set and give those kids credit for building that set. Anything else, guys?
I have both hair traction and Sagers. I teach the students how to do both of them.
Good.
And then I let them decide which one they like best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is your hair, is that bipolar or unipolar?
Single.
Okay. All right.
And for the mannequins, I refer to them as my resident patients.
Mm-hmm. Kids love to name them.
Oh yeah, names, IDs. They got their own medical insurance cards, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, guys. Well, I am out of my time. I really enjoyed talking with you guys. Hopefully I answered some questions for you, helped out, with, like I said, if you have an established program or you're thinking about getting it going, all of this information that I talked to, including the slideshows and reference pages and all that stuff, you can access that through the link on my presentation itself. I'm not really sure. Shelly, are you guys going to provide them the actual presentation? Was that the idea, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So on my
And
presentation
Charles?
itself, when they provide that to you, those links are there. They're live links, and it will also take you to that reference, to my reference file for all of those documents that I discussed with you guys.
Charles, real quick, I just opened that here and I clicked on the resources and it says I need permission.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought anyone with the link could do that. Did you try to paste it? Because when I try to click on the link in the presentation, it doesn't work. But if you paste it, I think it worked.
I tried both.
It didn't work?
No.
Okay, I will go back in and give you permission again, I guess. I'm not really sure what happened there.
Well, thank you. This is valuable information. This is really going to give me a head start in getting this program going.
Okay. Well, like I said, send me an email, and I will be more than happy to help assist, send you some other stuff, whatever you need, whatever we can do to help you, be more than happy to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day.